I exposed the school beauty's bullying and was retaliated, scratched by a cursed stone bleeding black blood with 3 days to live. When my boyfriend confronted my rival, she committed suicide, the stone disappeared, clues point to the villain who's come. That was an ethereal female voice, imbued with a soul-piercing despair that made my heart twist sharply. Just what kind of agony must one endure to utter words like these? I never want another life again. I unconsciously repeated the words. Before I could even make out the figure shrouded in the mist, I was violently shaken awake by an unexpected surge of force and then suddenly yanked upright. I opened my eyes in a panic, meeting Evan's dark, intensely oppressive gaze. He stared at me intently, as if he were trying to see right through my very soul. Say it again. Evan's voice was low and hoarse, tinged with a barely perceptible tremor. My face was filled with confusion. Say what? I've been asleep the whole time. I didn't say a thing. What did you dream about? His expression was unnervingly serious, his tone leaving no room for argument. Tell me the truth, or I won't hesitate to let you experience being dragged around like that all over again. Evan's attitude shifted too quickly. I was completely caught off guard. Just as I was about to recall the dream, I realized that everything from it had become hazy and indistinct, as if it had been erased by an eraser. I stared at him blankly, my lips moving slightly, but all I could manage to say honestly was, I don't remember. I can't recall a single thing, the scenes from the dream, the words we exchanged, it's all gone. I'm sorry, I just can't answer you. Can you let me go now? Evan stared at me for several more seconds, and only when he was sure I wasn't lying did he finally release his grip. I collapsed heavily onto the bed and immediately curled up in the corner, terrified that he might suddenly lose control again. His gaze just now felt as though he were looking right through me, straight at someone else. It was terrifying. Outside, the sky was still dark. Evan slammed the door behind him and never came back. Left alone in the empty room, without his oppressive presence, I actually felt a sense of relief. I threw myself onto the bed and fell asleep again, this time sleeping deeply and peacefully, no longer plagued by dreams. When I woke up again, it was already 10 in the morning, and I'd successfully missed out on Hugo's hearty breakfast. Has Evan still not come back yet? I asked Hugo, who was sitting on the living room sofa. Without even looking up, Hugo replied in an annoyed tone, who knows where that kid has wandered off to now. Judging by his expression, he'd probably been roped into another one of Evan's errands. Sensing the tension, I wisely kept my mouth shut and pulled out my phone to check on the aftermath of Chloe's bullying scandal that had been exposed last night. As soon as I opened my phone, a deluge of messages nearly overwhelmed me. Just as Evan had predicted, the story had gone viral across TikTok and Instagram. Chloe had always been a popular campus beauty at Cloud City University, but after the evidence of her bullying came to light, her personal information was completely laid bare. Her home address and private phone number were all made public. The public's outrage was overwhelming, curses and calls for boycotts echoed endlessly, and some even sent her family coffins and wreaths. Staring at the screen, I felt an inexplicable sense of satisfaction well up inside me, only to be immediately followed by a vague daze. Perhaps this wasn't my own emotion at all, but rather Mia's lingering obsession that had been haunting me all along. I was just joking around with Mia. In the video, Chloe faced a barrage of reporters yet continued to brazenly deny her actions, completely refusing to see them as bullying. I let out a cold laugh into my phone, thinking to myself, then don't you dare take those jokes online too lightly. In fact, as the incident escalated, more and more people who'd been bullied by Chloe came forward, revealing even more of her vicious deeds from middle school, stealing pocket money, posting humiliating notes, blocking toilets and dousing victims with cold water, and even one person who'd been beaten by her little clique and still carried the psychological scars to this day. And it all started simply because Mia had asked her to speak more quietly during self-study. With the wall falling under everyone's push, Chloe's perfect school beauty persona completely crumbled, and her mental state grew increasingly unstable. I couldn't help but worry whether Mia's soul had already returned to her body, so I took a taxi alone to Cloud City Private Hospital. In the hospital room, Chloe was curled up on the floor, her face deathly pale. She'd scream occasionally or mumble to herself, yet there was no sign of Mia. Apparently, Mia had already left. Seeing that nothing serious seemed to be happening, I turned to leave, but suddenly, I heard hurried footsteps behind me. Then, with a sudden, brutal force, someone slammed into my back. My balance was thrown off, and I stumbled forward several steps. Before I could even steady myself, Chloe leapt at me like a madwoman, pinning me down tightly onto the cold floor. Her nails dug deeply into my arm, and the pain made me gasp sharply. "Lila, it's all your fault. I'm ruined. You bitch. If you hadn't posted those things online, I'd still be the school's most popular girl, admired by everyone, and my parents wouldn't have cut ties with me. You just can't stand to see me happy, so you deliberately pushed me straight into hell." Chloe's eyes were wide open, bloodshot and blazing red, looking like a wild beast gone completely out of control. The black stone in her hand was clenched so tightly that her knuckles turned white, its sharp edges pointing directly at my chest. "Since I can't go on living, you're going to die with me. I'll make you buried beneath this damn rock. Just like me, you'll end up in hell." With all my strength, I twisted my body to dodge, but the stone still grazed my chest, leaving behind a searing, burning wound. Seeing this, Chloe went even crazier. She swung the stone again, aiming straight for my face this time. Quickly, I turned my head away, just in time for the stone to slam into the ground right by my ear. The flying shards of stone grazed my cheek, leaving a stinging scratch. I could feel warm blood trickling down my face. The wound on my thigh had torn even wider from my frantic struggles, sending waves of searing pain coursing through my body, making me tremble all over. "You're crazy. Stay away from me." Desperate and cornered, my will to survive surged forth. I opened my mouth wide and sank my teeth deep into Chloe's hand, which was pressed against my shoulder, my teeth nearly sinking into her flesh. Chloe let out a piercing scream of pain, her grip loosening slightly, and the black stone slipped from her grasp and tumbled to the ground. Taking advantage of the moment, I drove my knee hard into her stomach. She grunted in discomfort and rolled aside, giving me just enough room to break free. I scrambled forward, rolling and crawling toward the door. Just as I managed to get up and bolt for the exit, a towering figure suddenly blocked my path. The stranger reached out and pulled me behind him, firmly stepping in front of the pursuing Chloe. The familiar scent of sandalwood lingered at the tip of his nose. He turned his head and looked at me, his eyes warm behind gold-rimmed glasses. "Are you okay?" It was Silas. It was daytime now. Elias only took physical form at night, so this had to be Silas himself. "I'm fine, thanks, Senior." I shook my head and instinctively took a step back. Elias had left me with such deep psychological scars that whenever I saw a face so eerily identical to his, I couldn't help but feel as though he'd pounce on me and bite me any second now. All I wanted was to slip away quickly. "I'll go take care of my wound. Senior, you just keep doing whatever you're busy with. Don't worry about me." "Lila," Silas said, reaching out to grab the collar of my shirt, his tone serious, "you don't have to be afraid of me. I'm not him." I turned around, resigned. "But you guys look exactly alike. Whenever I see you, I can't help but think of Elias, and it's really terrifying." Silas frowned, as if deep in thought. "How about I get plastic surgery?" I stared at him in astonishment. "No, no, no. Senior, your face is already perfect. This is just my own issue. It's not worth changing yourself for me. Anyway, I've already taken a leave of absence, and chances are I'll never return to Cloud City University. We probably won't see each other again." Silas sighed softly. "Come on, let's go. I'll take you to get your wound dressed." I wanted to refuse, but he grabbed my hand without giving me a chance to protest and dragged me straight to the hospital's emergency room. While they were treating my wound, he stepped out briefly and came back holding an elegant paper bag. "Your dress got stained with blood, so I asked my assistant to bring you a new one. It should be your size." "You really don't have to go through all this trouble." I was about to decline when the nurse who'd been tending to my wound suddenly gasped, "Young lady, why is your wound bleeding dark blood?" I looked down, and sure enough, the blood seeping from the wound was a sinister shade of black, and my thigh had completely lost all sensation. I poked gently around the wound with my fingers. but there was absolutely no feeling at all. "We've got to get this black blood tested right away. You'll need a full body checkup," the nurse said, then hurried off to write up the orders. My heart sank. There was definitely something seriously wrong with that stone Chloe was holding. How could an ordinary person like her possibly possess such a bizarre object? I wanted to call Evan for help, but then I suddenly remembered he didn't even use a cell phone. In an instant, panic seized me. Could it really come to amputation? "I'm still so young, I don't want to end up crippled." "Don't worry, you're not going to lose your leg," Silas said, crouching down in front of me and handing me a handkerchief to wipe away my tears. His voice was as gentle as a spring breeze. "It's just a minor injury. The doctor will figure something out." With the black blood and the unconscious leg, it definitely wasn't a minor injury. As Silas comforted me, my emotions eased up a bit, but little did I expect that Evan would show up next. When he appeared in the emergency room doorway, his face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. Seeing the black blood on my leg and the bandages wrapped around it, his expression grew even darker. He strode quickly toward me, his brow furrowed tightly. "What on earth have you done to yourself? What happened to your leg?" Just as I was about to explain, he glanced briefly at Silas standing nearby, then without saying another word, scooped me up in his arms and slung me over his shoulder. "Forget it. Let's talk about this later. This injury can't wait." A familiar sense of safety washed over me. I leaned against his back, burying my face in his shoulder. Having him by my side made even the scariest things seem bearable. Just as Evan was about to leave, Silas stopped him. "Who exactly are you, Delilah? Where are we taking her?" Evan curled his lips into a mischievous grin and slapped my butt right in front of Silas, saying, "Tell her who I am." My face instantly turned as red as a beet. Just as he was about to slap me again, I quickly blurted out, "Senior Silas, this is Evan, my boyfriend." "Boyfriend?" Silas's voice dropped a few octaves. "Why haven't I ever met him before?" "We only started dating recently. We haven't made it official yet," I said through gritted teeth, wishing I could just sink into the ground. Evan let out a snort of laughter, then slung me over his shoulder and strode off with confidence, leaving Silas standing there, his expression unreadable. Back at Return Manor, Evan set me down on a bench in the courtyard and immediately called for Hugo. Hugo glanced at my wound and instantly turned as dark as Evan's face. "What on earth happened?" Hugo crossed his arms, his tone sharp and unfriendly. I quickly recounted how I'd gone off by myself to find Chloe and how she'd slashed me with a black stone. "Why did you even go looking for her in the first place?" Evan's voice was as cold as ice. "Couldn't you have just waited for me to come back?" "I just wanted to see if Mia had regained control of her body, and since I couldn't find you, I kept my head down, my voice growing softer and softer, afraid that he'd get angry and refuse to help me." "You old fox, explain it to her," Evan said impatiently, waving his hand dismissively. Hugo crouched down to examine the wound. As soon as his fingertips brushed against the bandage, I winced in pain. He pulled his hand away and said solemnly, his expression grim, "This isn't an ordinary stone. It's a cursed stone tainted by a dark ritual. This stone itself carries a malevolent power. Not only does it actively amplify the holder's malice, but it can also enter the victim's body through wounds, slowly draining their life force. You've been cut by it. Your curse has already spread through your bloodstream. Right now, the situation is this. Within 3 days, your life force will be completely drained, and your death will be excruciatingly painful. All the blood in your body will turn into black pus." What? I froze instantly, collapsing onto the bench. Tears welled up in my eyes in an instant. "Is there any way to break the curse? I don't want to die. If I'd known it would end like this, I'd have never, under any circumstances, gone looking for Chloe all by myself." Evan let out a heavy sigh, his voice laced with resignation. "Now you finally realize your mistake? Couldn't you just have stayed put?" I know I was wrong. I immediately admitted my fault, my tone utterly sincere. "From now on, whenever you're not around, I'll absolutely never go alone to any dangerous places. Please, just save me." Evan glared at me for a few seconds, his eyes briefly flickering with reluctance, then he tilted his chin toward Hugo. "Take care of this first, slow down the curse." Reluctantly, Hugo fetched the tools and began cleaning my wound again. As I looked at his young face, yet one that wore an air of surprising maturity, I couldn't help but remark, "Hugo, you're really something else. Not only can you cook deliciously, but you can even heal cursed wounds." "Cut the flattery," Hugo said without lifting his head, busy preparing herbs. "This medicine can only temporarily halt the curse's spread, buying you a couple more days and easing the pain, but it only treats the symptoms, not the root cause. If you want to break the curse completely, you'll have to find the curse stone and destroy it, and there's a special trick to destroying it, too. You've got to burn it with pure holy silver flame. Ordinary fire won't even scratch it. What's even more troublesome is that this stone has a master. It forms a faint bond with whoever's blood it's touched. Now that Chloe's dead, that bond's been severed, making it even harder to track down the stone. The stone is in Chloe's hands. Couldn't we just go find her and get it back?" I said urgently. Evan let out a cold laugh. "Things aren't that simple. Think about it carefully. How could an ordinary person like Chloe possibly have the cursed stone?" His words jolted me awake in an instant. Right, Chloe was just a spoiled bully who'd never had any connection to something so eerie. Someone must have deliberately given it to her. Just as I was pondering this, my phone suddenly vibrated. Sophia had sent a message, and my heart sank straight to the bottom of my stomach. Chloe was dead. An hour earlier, Chloe, driven to a mental breakdown, had taken a child hostage at the hospital, intending to smash the child to death with the stone she held. But the child struggled violently, causing Chloe to lose her grip and accidentally plunge the stone into her own chest. Black blood gushed out, and she died on the spot. As soon as the news broke, the internet erupted once again. No one felt sorry for her. Everyone thought she'd gotten exactly what she deserved. But right now, I couldn't care less about any of that. Chloe was dead, and where had the stone of curses gone? Without the stone, I'd just have to wait for death to claim me in 3 days' time. Hugo brought over a bowl of dark, murky-looking potion. "Drink this first. It'll temporarily suppress the curse." I took the potion in one gulp. The bitter taste spread quickly across my mouth, but thinking that I'd gained 2 more days of life made the discomfort seem insignificant. Not long after finishing the potion, sensation slowly began returning to my legs, and with it came a searing, bone-deep pain that made me wince and grit my teeth. "At least it's better than turning into a puddle of mush," Hugo said, glancing at me sidelong. "If you don't treat the wounds inflicted by the stone of curses promptly, they'll eventually fester down to the bone, leaving you in a truly gruesome state when you die." Shivering, I dared not complain any further and hobbled back to the room with Evan. He sat down on the edge of the bed, while I curled up in the corner, trembling like a startled quail, too afraid to breathe. "Now you're finally scared?" Evan said coldly, rising to his feet and stepping closer to me. "I'll never dare do anything like that again," I whispered, apologizing softly. Evan stared at me with a sneer that made the hairs on my arm stand on end. "Lila, I really underestimated you. Just how much trouble are you planning to get yourself into next?" He reached out and hoisted me up, his dark eyes locked onto mine. I lowered my head guiltily, because this time, it was indeed my own reckless actions that had landed me in trouble. "I'm sorry, I promise there won't be a next time." I held out my finger, solemnly vowing to him. Evan gently set me down on the bed, his movements surprisingly tender. He looked down at me with a gaze that was dark and unreadable, making me feel slightly uneasy. Was he perhaps planning to take advantage of my injury and bully me? "I'm a patient. I can't do any strenuous exercise." I quickly took the initiative. Evan's face instantly turned grim. "What on earth are you thinking?" "I was just wondering. Chloe's dead, the cursed stone is nowhere to be found, and I'm starting to think maybe I really am going to die." As I spoke, I couldn't hold back anymore and burst into tears, burying my face in his legs. "Evan, I don't want to die. You've got to save me." My sobs grew louder and louder, and I let out all my fear and resentment. Evan stood frozen in place for a few seconds before finally reaching out to gently pat my back. His voice was resigned yet tinged with a hint of indulgence. "Are you done crying yet? Once you've cried enough, get up. I'm not saying I won't save you." I lifted my tear-blurred face and looked at him. "You really can save me?" "Of course," Evan said, his dark eyes flashing with unwavering determination. He reached out and wiped away the tears from my cheeks, his fingertips carrying a faintly cool touch. But first, we'll have to find out where the cursed stone is, and the clue might be right here, with Elias. As soon as he finished speaking, the phone in my pocket suddenly began to vibrate. It wasn't a notification alert. Instead, it emitted a strange, low-frequency vibration. I pulled it out and took a look. The screen showed no incoming calls or messages, yet it had lit up on its own, revealing a blurry photo. In the photo was that very same black cursed stone, and next to it sat a silver badge I'd never seen before, engraved with eerie patterns. What sent a chill down my spine even more was that the background of the photo, a courtyard exactly like the one at Gui Yuan. The moment Evan saw the photo, his expression changed dramatically. He suddenly stepped in front of me, shielding me with his body, and stared alertly toward the courtyard entrance. His deep voice was icy cold as he said, "It's already found its way here."